Hello everybody, welcome back to another session today, and we will do the things a bit differently today. We will actually dive into our community and we will look into the comments that we got from our inner circle members to address them here. It's always great to talk about these things with Paco and me. We do this obviously we obviously do this every Tuesday live with our group coaching. But we also have a lot of comments inside the community, and that's what we want to address here. So let me share my screen. I think we just dive in. Hello, Paco.
Hello, dear friend.
It's not like that. It's not like that we never greet us off camera, right? So it looks like that. Oh yeah. Oh, what a surprise! You're suddenly here. So I didn't expect you to be here.
That's the thing, because before going live, we are talking normally. So for us, it's just a continuation of the conversation.
Exactly, especially as the Monday is our day where we talk quite a lot in the morning on the agenda meeting, up to 3 hours.
Too much, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, in your opinion? Oh, yeah, that says the guy who doesn't stop talking. All right. So here, they're really a match made in heaven. Okay, so we never struggle to fill the hours.
No.
All right, but let's not waste any more time. Here we are. This is a question from Julius. He was worrying in the ICOR Journey Kickstart, which is a free course for anyone signing up, explaining what ICOR actually is. And he worried about 290 lessons that we provide across 70 courses, and this is overwhelming. And that's something we want to address. And I thought, let's show this today, because just this morning in our agenda meeting, we concluded a huge update coming to the My ICOR learning platform that should bring even more clarity when it comes to how to progress through the ICOR journey and what this is all about. So let me show you this live inside the app. Okay. So for those of you already members who know, we have this My ICOR Journey. If you signed up, you get access to this. And in this page, that's your personal page, that shows you how to progress through the ICOR journey. So you build your productivity system end to end. And I also got a lot of other support tickets. Well, not a lot. I mean, compared to the sign-up ratio, it is really a fraction, so 0.001%, I'd say, where people ask, how do I build my ICOR system? How do I implement this? Where do I implement this and all this? And we want to really make clear again, ICOR is a tool-agnostic approach that makes you aware of what is surrounding you every day at your workplace and even in your life. And we do this by going through all the different parts of our productivity system, like digital note-taking, personal knowledge management, task management, project management, and automation up to this year. And we now added the AI like a Pro course in addition. And these are based on concepts and workflows that are tool agnostic. They're independent. So the question, what is a node? It applies to a piece of paper as much as it does to any tool. And that's where we dive deeper than, for example, talking about what is the best note-taking app, and then the different workflows, because there are different types of note-taking and different types of information. And that's something people are not aware of, that if I'm going out of a meeting and I jot it down 4 different sentences, like, I have to follow up with this guy, I have an insight here, and that these are different types of information or even action if I need to do something. And this is what makes you aware. In order to achieve this, we have the growth assignments. And here I just want to say 290 lessons, this is not the case. Our ICOR Journey courses in total have 73 lessons. And obviously, they are broken down into different courses that you just follow in a sequential order. And this is where we are doing the huge update when it comes to this now is, that there are videos in the AI like a Pro course. There are no videos yet. These videos are, not on brand and a bit dated. Also, they still apply. But what we will do, we will create 73 new video lessons, right? We heard you wanted to have a video. We consider that each lesson is very already in depth when it comes to learning each concept and workflow, but obviously you come from YouTube, and this is where we will provide this, and this within the next 2 weeks. That's what you will see here. In addition, what you have there. So the core was always in this, the growth assignment that gives you the tangible progress, the feeling of progress going through the course and understanding where your gaps are. And this is what we consider the implementation, because you already have a system implemented. You might just don't know it. You're already using tools. You're already doing work every day. You're already looking up emails and actions in emails and so on all over the place. And this is what ICOR makes you realize. However, something that in the previous platform we made a better job with, to be transparent, was that we have this ICOR framework that is crucial to the whole process. So if people ask, how do I build up my ICOR system? Or how do I make it visible? Here you go. This is it. This is the ICOR framework defining a productivity system end to end. The different circles, I'm not going into much detail here to explain this, but each circle represents a specific part of your productivity system. Personal knowledge management, task management, business knowledge management, and business project management. And here you lay out your current tools when you get started before you even go into a course. So you think about the tools that you're already using and you just list out the tools. Then you go through the courses, and in the end, and that's what we see over and over, for those who did this, right? So most of the members actually doing it. It's just for those who are not aware when they start here. They have a complete different system afterwards, because they realize, oh, I'm using, duplicate information or redundant tools. So I have redundancies. I can remove a tool, and there is a gap. I want to add a tool, and that's what this ICOR framework is for. This is what this ICOR framework is for. And here in this personal knowledge management area, we zoom even in the digital note-taking course, where you then have your note-taking framework to even identify what note-taking apps and PKM tools you are using for the different types of note-taking. And this might look complex, but now you can imagine this is surrounding you every day. That's not something we make up and you need to learn this now to work according to ICOR. We just make you aware that this is surrounding you every day, and that is what's causing you the confusion and the anxiety. And this is what this sequential order of going through these courses builds up from a personal productivity perspective into the business productivity perspective, into then automation, and then AI like a pro, because this always comes in the end, and you would be shocked how much more productive you are even before you reach these points, when you realize all the things that you do. Because if you go task management, again, shallow work versus deep work, tasks, what is personal work? All these definitions, it's not something, it's not based on buzzwords. It's something that you handle every day as a professional. And this alone, just going through the course lessons and answering these questions, gives you already a perfect understanding, where are my gaps, and then you can really dive deep. But what is coming now is also these new videos that give you, a quick summary, but also implementation examples, real world examples, and then always the cross connection to this ICOR framework that I showed you, so you really understand where are my tools in this whole part. And yeah, that's the one big update, Paco, right? And we had a few more today where we do dive even deeper when we talk about the courses, because we already created so much content around Claude, and we have this Claude Mastery for Professionals course, and this becomes really long. And there is even, in the implementation layer, we have lessons that are courses themselves, and that's where people obviously get confused. We are aware of this, and this is where this course gets split in several courses and then expanded accordingly. So you really have the different use cases for Claude that you then can dive deeper in. But this is work in progress. This is why we also thank you for your feedback. Always bring it back. But overall, I'm really happy with all the feedback we got. I mean, it's not something new, my ICOR journey, because that's something we've been teaching for 4 years now successfully, and we see all the success stories. This is really now getting to the next level. And one last thing, what we are really proud of that we concluded is how do we integrate the additional learning resources, all the things that we teach on YouTube, the very in-depth articles that Paco is putting out there, and then, it gets hidden in a community feed. How do we resurface these things? Well, obviously, our community agent is resurfacing them whenever people ask questions. He points it to an article or a video from me too. However, this will also become part of this new approach in the ICOR journey. So this means below the video, there will be a new section where you have an implementation section that is directly connected to any article or video that dives deeper into this current concept that you're looking in. And this will be really amazing. So there will be just a 2 or 3 latest versions, because we have thousands, well, nearly 1,000 now, videos, articles, podcasts. Listing all them would be nonsense. So we will just always show you the latest version that we talked about it, and yet you will have the button that you go here and then you can filter by these concepts and workflows and so on. So it's all there. It is just a matter of pointing you into the right direction. And if something there is that I don't like in other communities, where I constantly need to reach out and ask, where do I find this? And then having a community manager pointing you into the resource, that's nonsense. This is what, with this technology nowadays, we can do a better job. And that's what's coming in the next 2 weeks with my ICOR 5.0. Well,
yeah, because it's important for us to two things. One, it's guidance. I think that our ultimate purpose has always been make technology digestible for professionals, okay? So that they don't need to be super nerdy to really understand how to create, design, and build a productivity system end-to-end. And the second one is being able to go as deep as you want, okay? This is not a matter of being 2 years, because, well, I don't know how long will it take to consume absolutely all the content that we have in this learning platform, because it's insane, and also because it's growing every single day. So I think that this is something impossible to catch up. And also that we got thousands of busy professionals there with different profiles, different needs, different industries. Well, the profile is so wide that every person needs has a specific needs. Here we got close to 4,000.
Yeah.
And the thing that this is growing too. So that's why for us, making the content digestible, having that guidance, okay, and also allowing the people to go, because no matter the ICOR journey is 70 something lessons with different growth assignments for each lesson. But the thing is that those growth assignments are simple bullet points that you can quickly reply, so that you quickly can have an audit of your current situation, see the points that you need to go deeper. And that's why we are creating lessons that are as deep as you want, because we will have the video, we have the magic slide, we have the cheat sheet, we had a long text format, we have the related articles and videos and podcasts, everything. So you can go as deep as you want into any of those general concepts, because that's the thing, okay? We haven't changed a word in the ICOR journey because of AI, for instance. That's why we created a specific AI like a pro course, because the solid foundational core is exactly the same. And I think that with this improvement, because everything is done, it's just a matter of showing things differently, people will find their way even much easier and faster.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's what we want.
And this is what this page also will get refined. You will get your tool stack insights, so you really get this understanding of your system. People need to stop thinking, and that's something we never recommended in the first place, to download a template and install it, and this is it. This is just this is the quick fix or the shortcut that people are searching for, and people are not aware how much time they invested watching different videos, downloading the template, installing it. It's halfway in, and that's where in other methodologies it's only covering personal knowledge management, for example, or only task management. This is where ICOR is end-to-end, and this is what just needs time. But this doesn't mean that you not have constantly progress and improvements, because just realizing where do you store your notes and where you retrieve it will already give you a productivity boost. And this is why this whole journey, also for Paco and me, never ends. As you can see, yeah, we applied AI now as another layer on top of our already maxed out productivity system that we had in place. And this is exactly what we give you, all these different layers that you can build on top of. All right, but I think enough of this. Let's dive into the actual questions that we got. So there is, let's dive in this one. Yeah, and I saw these questions more, and I'm actually also fed up with this issue, and that's where it's great that we talk about this today. The memory of Claude. Okay, that's a very important thing to discuss, and we see this here on our workshop recording here in the discussion from Jay and from Brian. They have similar issues, and I'm sure they are not the only ones when it comes to this memory. And why I'm fed up with this is it's interfering with my agent team. It's not as bad as I read it here, so I'm curious about this. But I didn't look it up. If I think you can switch off the memory too, at least in the desktop app, right? And then delete the global folder or give guardrails there. And this is what I actually would recommend, because Claude wants you to obviously that you use it for your personal use case and it understands you, which is a great thing. This is something great when we are using it as a chatbot. And then it's, it reminds in the next conversation what you said in the last one. And well, not even this, it will understand more and more about you as a person and so on. But this is where I saw another question that is related to this. I think is this one. He built 2 productivity systems to help people with ADHD. And he is also referring to that the team gets confused which one to use. And here I have to say that I don't have any issues. I'm using 2 different systems too. I have built one AI agent system that runs my ICOR. I do all the work inside ICOR, and I have my personal system where I only have my private life and the business related stuff there, but it's just me. So obviously the one system I'm using, like, hey, I'm working with my team in my ICOR, like human team, and the other one is my personal team that helps me with my crazy mind and things like this. So that's why I have them separate, and that's a legit use case. In Paco's case, he doesn't have this separation, so it makes things obviously easier if you have everything in one folder and everything combined, because then you don't need to duplicate information. But that's why insights and so on, this doesn't go into my, well, I'm not going into the detail. What I want to say here is that I have no issues switching. What you need to be cautious of is that a Claude can access any folder on your drive. And I just realized, opening up the personal version for my team, it launched in the wrong folder for some reason. I don't know why this happened, but this is something you just need to check out in which folder you're in. Usually this never happens, but that was just one in the past 6 months that I ever had any issues with bleeding of memory or something like this, because I was it here with the bleeding? Was it part of these questions?
I think it was the next one.
Was it the next one?
one? It's a different
because
question,
it's again related.
Yeah.
Now
It comes from Winston.
Oh, is it then this one? It was this one with bleeding then. And he was then commenting down here.
The thing is that I think that many people are combining the different products of Claude, meaning chat, co-work, and code. And I think that that's where things becomes messy. I remember that in the early day
Yeah.
when Claude Code was launched before co-work, that I was confused between using chat and Claude Code. I'm talking about the desktop app, okay? And it was confusing for me because there were things that I was talking on chat and then they didn't appear on Cloud Code and vice versa. And it was chaotic until there was a moment that I decided to stop using the chat because for me, it was just a generator of noise. And I think that that's something that people should commit to. If you bet on co-work or Cloud Code, you should stop using Cloud Chat because for me, there was a moment that for me, it wasn't, I made the, the test, okay? And I tried with the exact same prompt and see the results. And I started doing that many things. I don't know if it was hundred of things, but hundred of times, sorry. But the thing is that I was receiving the exact same thing. So for me, it didn't make any sense. Okay, I think that the moment that you bet on, I want to start storing my context through whatever the type of store you use, a database or a file, you should forget about chat and the memory that uses Claude because the Claude memory is something that Claude chooses and you don't have control over it. You don't know if it's memorizing something. Sometimes it's memorizing things that are interesting. Some other times it's memorizing things that they are not important for you at all. It makes everything. Also, you don't know where to go to, and that's something that it's confusing. I just want to go to one place and know that I have everything in there. And I think that the moment that you have control over skills and, well, all the information that you can store on files, is the moment that you are really building your own productivity system. The other approach of using chatbots with a specific memory that the LLM chooses, I think that that's belongs to the past, in my opinion. And
Which is
I don't know the
strange,
use
right,
case that
Paco?
you start
Because
using that. Sorry?
which is strange because we loved to have the memory. I remember in ChatGPT when they first introduced the memory, that was game changing because suddenly it understood and then it started to search through the chat. But then again, this is where confusion hits if you don't have a clear understanding and separation what chat is actually relevant for this. So talking about context, and if you go into the ICOR journey, there's a whole lesson just talking about context, and this is exactly it. So yeah, sorry, didn't want to interrupt. I just wanted to add.
No, the thing is that for me, I think that we are going so fast in this AI era that things becomes quickly nonsense, okay? And I think that there was a moment where that memory made sense because initially you had nothing. And I remember that the moment that I said, well, he's starting to memorize things about the different conversations that I'm having. And then they said, well, but then if you want to really memorize something, tell the LLM to memorize it. And I was constantly trying to make it memorize the things, but it didn't work, and that was the starting point of frustration, Then they created the project so that at least for specific things, you can have specific instructions or specific files that give context to the LLM. But the thing is that there are things that are combined, there are knowledge that belongs that you cannot isolate because projects is like a folder approach where you cannot connect anything at all. And then things become messy. And I think that the pivotal moment was the moment that as a user, you had the power of using your own Markdown files, store the things properly, tell the different agents, using different skills that are perfectly defined. You can create SOPs with the steps that a process should follow. I think that that's the moment that everything changed. And the moment that you move to that side, it doesn't make any sense to move backwards to the previous chat product, no matter if it's Claude or any other. I think that people who are using chat are not into, and because maybe they don't have that need, okay, of storing things locally, But the moment that you move locally, I would recommend to stop using chat and try to force the things until that local storage makes sense for you based on the replies that you are receiving.
Yeah, and I just want to share quickly this is now my ICOR Larry team working in my ICOR. And this also applies to my personal one, right? I always have this command close chat, and this looks like now, oh, hey, how do I unlock this in my chat Claude Code? And it is as simple as having in your .claude.md, and probably if you're using Claude, you know already what this is. There's just a folder, and I think I always like to open this in the Finder just, because it looks even more simple. Okay, here we're in the Larry thing. And then we have here let me show the hidden files, Claude.md, and here's commands, and there's close chat. And this is simply this prompt that I kept repeating. And whenever you feel that you keep repeating something to AI, this is the moment where you use a command. Right? So all it does is that it will log the session. However, obviously AI, or Larry in this case, needs to understand what logging means. And this is where what we show inside the workshop and constantly on YouTube and in Paco's articles and so on, where you build up the system from scratch. So you have a database, and in this database, the agents can log. And in my case, in this very complex setup here, there is a whole team, and each team member has their own PKM system where they have their own logging, but we also have overall BKM logging where they have insights for the whole team that is relevant. And this way I can always close the chat, and I can be ensure everything that I discussed gets now summarized properly, just the outcome. And I said it in the other video, like in meetings, in the beginning you have confusion, in the end you have conclusion, and everything in between is a mess. So we just want to have the conclusion, the signal, and not all the other things. And that's what they do here. So that's the self-improving system that we have here, just based on this close chat command that I just showed you. And also, well, I'm not diving deeper into this. That's enough.
Well,
but
the
this
thing is that
where
here we can see the difference between you, the user, deciding what needs to be stored, okay, and how a process like this simple closed chat goes, instead of just leaving Claude to do whatever they consider. Because the point also about chat is that when you open a new session, it starts from scratch. So there's no an initial setup that at least the session have an initial context of the main things that matters to you, okay, about who you are, what are you doing, all those type of things. It's something that needs to be defined. That's why, well, when they launched the projects feature, it was important because you had initial instructions for that project that allowed you to, at least the moment that I go to that project and create a new section, I know that the LLM knows a little bit about me.
Correct. This is the projects Paco is referring to, right? And this is something you had first in chat. If you're in chat project, this is something. And I wrote all the scripts and so on for the ICOR Journey together with this project, because it's still there, even the YouTube script writer and so on. Also, I never took it for granted, but it really, compared to ChatGPT or something, it became really usable. So for example, ICOR Journey lesson writer, it has here, you have this memory. You have the instructions, and even there the memory I never liked because it was interfering with what I want based on the context that I provide. And you can see here, there I added all the different courses and even the ICOR Journey book here and all this as context. And that was huge already, but it was static and not dynamic. And this is what changed now with using Claude Code in a local folder and give them these instructions. And this is what you have somewhat with co-work, and yet they introduced projects here again, which again added a new layer of confusion, because now you can add a project or you can add a local folder. So what's the combination? I want to have a local folder and maybe additional context from external sources. And I keep having here the question open, sorry about that. What software is that? That just refers to the previous one, this one, okay? This is VSCode. I made a video about this, just look at the channel where I show this. it is just, again, well, an IDE. We just talked about this, that there will be also a new course
We
coming.
know how important it is to define it, okay?
that's the
Because
point.
if not, it's impossible. What is this? Well, this VS Code. So, okay, perfect.
Okay,
so now
okay.
what? So now what?
Because now, yeah, so now what? What do you don't know? And we say VS Code is much better than Obsidian, and you have no clue what we talk about because they're completely different tools. So that's why we launch a new course that really teaches the basics for the non-nerdy people and the non-techie people, where we explain simple things like Markdown. What is Markdown, right? Or what is an IDE? And here you see it. That's an IDE. And this allows just, you see here, this is just a terminal as you would open it. And in simple terms, it just is here accessing my folder on the left. That's it. And I showed you in another video where I just have the folder in the Finder open and a terminal next to it, and it works exactly the same way. But here, obviously, this is for, in the previous times, it was used for coders, and now I'm using this as my knowledge management system. But all this complexity that you see here, and maybe this looks different because I have a theme here, and this is something we're not diving deeper into. VS Code, free to download, something that people use for decades to do coding, and now we use it for knowledge management that we consider is, in our case at least, easier to use and more controllable than using another layer like Obsidian on top. So you cannot get more raw, I would say, than using VS Code or as an IDE. The advantage is using it in here that Claude Code hooks directly into the IDE and can have access. So whenever I select something here, like this one, it now I open it here, it gets confusing. Well, I'm not diving into this. That's too techy now, and that's where we make the courses, okay?
Well, the thing is that, for instance, so people understand the transition,
Yeah.
I remember that when I started creating the skills, because skills were launched before agents, or at least that was the path that I follow. Okay, I started creating skills that it's definition of things, of processes that you want to deliver. For instance, a skill could be, I don't know, editing articles. Okay, that could be a skill where you define all the different, okay, your voice, tone of voice, how you want the articles, the extension. Well, all the things that you think that an article should have to edit it. And I remember that I started creating a prompt in Google Chat because I had projects at that moment. Okay, I had a project to edit the articles. I had another project to, I don't know, draw strategic conclusions about my different businesses. I had different project folders in Chat, okay, in Claude Chat. And I remember to ask Claude Chat to create a prompt so that I can create the skill in a Markdown file. And that's how I made the transition from Chat to Claude Code at that moment, because at that moment Claude Code didn't exist, okay? But that's how people can link the dots, okay, and make the connections, because I think that this is an ecosystem. Claude is a living ecosystem that has been transitioning very quickly, and it's impossible, to understand the current situation of Claude if you don't understand how things have evolved, okay? Unfortunately, as we are talking about less than a year, okay, all these changes. So it's pretty easy to quickly explain that is the things that we do there in the my ICOR learning platform is what we do, okay? Because the moment that you have the whole picture, now you start understanding, and you understand the restriction of using a project, why project exists, what is a skill, what is a Markdown file, why having an initial Markdown file like Claude.md allows you to start any session with, well, the LLM being context aware. And I think that all those things together, and then how to do it, okay? Well, we show the different things through VS Code or terminal, or the different ways that you have to access the LLM to deliver these files, this structure, this context that perfectly define what's going on your life.
Yeah. And Curtis? Yeah. And we have here a question from Curtis. I think that's interesting to address in this context too. Is the program for individual PKAs, or can businesses use it? And if you follow us for all the time, obviously we are both professionals. Paco is a multi-business owner. So this is where all this is not built with business in mind. It is a conclusion from professionals working in businesses and big corporate and running several businesses in parallel. And I show you again what the key here is. It is again the ICOR framework where everything comes together. So if you look on the top, this is the personal productivity area. And when we say personal, it is the personal work area to make it easier to understand. Also, you will start applying ICOR also to your private life. And here's the business area. And what we mean by this is the shared content with the team. And even if you're a solopreneur, you might be sharing content with clients, or you want to have it accessible. Well, to me, it's obvious in the meantime what goes here. These are the business documentation. So that's where, if you now look at Larry's setup here, oh, sorry, that's the wrong one.
I think that it clarifies a lot.
I just don't want to miss the link here. As you can see here, you see the 4 areas too. There's BKM, Business Knowledge Management, Business Project Management. There is PKM, which is for Larry, the Personal Knowledge Management, and Larry's Personal Project Management. And this is how I initially set this thing up. That's not what I'm teaching now, right? It's still there. It might be dead code. I have to review if they are still using it, because the core is really in this setup, the business knowledge management. So I treat all AI agents like they have their own memory and they have now their own session logging, because I want each expert to have their own insights, right? What they did good and what not. And then have the conclusions in the BKM, and there's where everything comes together in an SOP. And then you have here the SOP, the standard operating procedure, where there's a simple one, I don't know, quote card generation, okay? And then you have it here, where it is defined how we set up quote cards, okay? If we create some for the social media. So now with this, I have an AI independent business knowledge management system. So I can have a normal team working with the same SOPs as others would work with. So now the thing is, and that's the important thing to address with this question, I think, and then Paco, I let you get to your reply there. But I think the important thing is to this question, I would never share this folder that I showed you with the team. And that's where people get confused. And well, we saw even people doing it in their business. They build something that works amazingly for them. And then they just invite other people to a shared folder in SharePoint or in Dropbox. And then they wonder why AI suddenly talks to the other people in their name. And this gets worse if you don't have a separate system as I have here. If I would now decide, maybe there's a use case, where somebody really understands how to use this, then I let them in and we work together in there, maybe with Paco. I don't want to have my private stuff in there then. Then it is just on this business focus. That's why this is really a work stream setup that I have here, where the whole AI team is aware of video content creation, lesson creation, community management, and all these things. So where is now the difference between PKAs, individual PKAs, and business? Well, that's not business PKA, makes no sense. Where's the difference between the personal knowledge assistants and the businesses? And this is where I want to share again quickly the ICOR framework to address this. And this is where it becomes important to realize this is your expert area, your personal expert area. Let me remove this quickly. Where there is your thoughts, this is your conclusions, and that's where we strongly recommend to any business, and that's why we believe it's not working in most businesses globally, the implementation of AI, because they try to throw AI on the team members and they need to collaborate with this and so on, instead of educating the individuals to build their own AI teams, to empower their expertise, to remove the friction for their expert work, to make actually the return of investment, what they get paid for, much higher. And this is the area for these experts. So every expert, a designer, would have a complete different set of tools they're using in a company than an engineer, for example. So also they will use different tools to conclude complex work and things like this. But then when they completed their work, where does it go? And this needs to be a single source of truth in the business. And this is where ICOR addresses the business. What is the single source of truth? Where do I place this information? Or where's the prioritization of my task? How do I know what I need to work on today or this week? All these things, that's what we're addressing in the project management, like a pro course in the ICOR journey, where we talk about the business area. And only by understanding the whole thing, first of all, as a team leader, business owner, you become more productive yourself, and you understand better how your team actually should work personally, and how you can work together in a collaborative environment. And this has nothing to do with AI. You can use AI to empower yourself. You can have even AI in here to have, help you search documentation. Paco is using an AI tool he can share in a moment. But at the same point, it's different use cases where you use different types, different setups of AI agents for different purposes. So this way, and that's what we saw all the years, business owners force personal productivity tools onto the team and to become more productive and so on. But man, if this guy is more productive using a piece of paper to write down the individual task and check them off during the week, then let him do this. But you as a business owner just need to be clear what it is that you gave him in the first place and what you expect next week to be completed. And this should be the control over everything, and the rest, how they get to the solution, should be up to them, so they can optimize their own efficiency in the regards as an expert. I hope this makes this a bit clear. And Paco, I'm sure you can a lot share to this question too.
Yes, I was going to say that thanks to the implementation that we made, because this ICOR framework was initially just a diagram on a Miro board, something static.
Yeah.
People even printed out and started working there. But here, thanks to the implementation, you can isolate the different areas and you gain a lot of clarity, because you can be fully focused on just specific area of the 4 main ones. And I think that that's important. And I was going to double down on the concept of how AI should be implemented in companies, or at least share my use case that is 4 different companies. I'm talking about an overall team of 70 plus people, businesses that has nothing to do to each other. And the thing is, being fully focused on the personal area and tell the people how they can be empowered thanks to using correctly for their own use case, for their daily task, okay, and how they handle their own information, everything, and leave the team area exactly as it is, okay? Yeah. The thing is that the way that they can deliver the content into the team area grows a lot, okay? Talking about the quality, the quantity, how reports are done, but you need to keep working with the exact same tool referring. I mean, if you are using for your project as a project management tool ClickUp, keep using ClickUp, okay? And let the people use the exact same way, but they are putting there their outcomes, that they don't need to connect their AI system to, no, let's make it simple. I think that people immediately wants to do everything in just one go, okay? And I think that it's much more important, It's much important because also, most of the people are not using correctly their project management system. I mean, they don't have protocols, they don't have standards, they don't have routines that everyone knows that they exist. They don't have SOPs that are easy to implement and guarantee that everyone is following those steps, okay? To communicate, to share information, to organize the priority, to define the weekly goals, to have an overall vision of the quarterly goals. All that is not perfectly set up. At least it's our experience and the people who come to ICOR, okay? And I think that that's important. Leave the project management system as it is, okay? Leave the communication system as it is, and be fully focused on improving how each single person works, because that's exactly, in my opinion, in the moment that the LLMs are living, okay? They are just fully focused on improving how one person grows. And the thing is that multiple person grow on their own, combining those growth is how the team grows itself. Because right now, if you try, even if you try to check out the plans, talking about team plans and all that, coming from the companies who develop the LLMs, it's kind of a joke, okay? I will say that because it's something you cannot trust when you still are defining. We are still, Tom and myself, defining how we work with AI on our own, okay? So how come are we gonna start, making AI working for everyone, especially if we are talking about teams of 15, 100 people? What the heck? It's impossible. It's impossible. Things need to be done and implemented progressively, okay?
Well,
little by little, step by step, and knowing what you are doing.
Those people are already overwhelmed, right? That's
correct.
the point. They're already overwhelmed. Maybe they don't like AI or frustrated with technology in general. And now you throw something at them that you don't understand yourself properly. And this just leads to toxicity in the company for sure. And it was always the case with any software.
And it's important to say that when we talk about the personal area and individual area, we are talking about the work-related area, okay? We are not talking about creating shopping grocery list and things like that. No, we are talking about how you, as a professional, work yourself, how you manipulate and manage information, how you organize your task, how do you find your priorities, how you react to unexpected events, how you are able, okay, to enrich your information, how you move quicker and faster from information to action, how you transform your information into tangible actions that deliver outcomes that allow you to achieve your goals. All that process is huge on itself, okay, just for a single person. And the thing is that the moment, and that's what happened at least, and because here we share a real life experience, okay, because we have gone through that and we have tried everything.
One example in this, just to give an example, incorporate, I suffered a lot. I was one of the complainers in the beginning saying, well, what else should I do, right? I'm working on global projects. They're throwing stuff at me left and right. And then in the end, they say, you didn't achieve your goal because of X, right? That makes no sense. I work 10 to 16 hours sometimes in this company, 6 days a week. What the heck? Until I realized I can actually optimize myself. So that's always the option that you have, no matter how big or complex the company is. So this means I managed the tasks that were thrown at me, and I realized what I was working on. So I was able to give informed feedback to my team leader, and I say, look, these are all the things that you gave me. These are things that random people gave us because we are a service team, and all these things together, and you want to give me a whole new project. Now you have to give me the prioritization for this, how this fits in, how to fit in my goals. So I was in full control of my own productivity and how much I can achieve in the given time. And this was the moment everything flipped. And then obviously people got curious how I do this and how I stay in control of this. And that's where I rolled this out for the whole team and many things. And then later on, leading my own team. Just the recent video, if you haven't watched it yet on my YouTube channel, watch the recent video. I go much deeper into this. But this would be one example where the personal work, right? When we say personal, where it's about the personal work, that I'm the employee in this company. There are company goals and projects, and yet there are the tasks that I got, and I have to organize myself. This doesn't mean that it doesn't apply to your whole life, Paco, right? So because you have your personal assistant for everything, like I do, which goes beyond, because we need to be a whole person for the whole day. I need to know when I need to go a doctor's appointment. I need to know where my restrictions are and my energy levels for the evening and things like this. So we have to think holistically in the end, but to make things easy to understand, end-to-end a productivity system, you focus on this personal area, so you understand the business area and how everything works together, and then naturally it will spread into the rest of your life too.
Yeah, correct. And it's impressive, I have to say it, it's impressive how the moment that you start combining people who are really using AI correctly, and they have their independent personal productivity systems, it's impressive how the company grows with it, okay? Everything compounds, everything leverages. And also, you start, defining patterns much more clearer based on the outcomes that the AI is giving to every single individual, that it's the thing that they communicate to others. Okay, I'm saying this because just the last week I had the monthly meeting with my managers of one of my companies, of a marketing agency, and it was impressive how we have improved that monthly meeting by each manager sharing their conclusions based on their personal productivity system. Amazing how we exchange and we brought clarity, how we improve our alignment about their actions for the next month, and how everything is running much more smoother. But everything is based on personal productivity, and then having a proper business knowledge management plus business project manager. Okay, I think that those different pillars in the area of the team needs to be consolidated, okay, to keep delivering things correctly. Because if that isn't defined, okay, if you cannot quickly make an alignment between the goal of the corporate and the daily tasks that the different members of each team needs to execute and complete to move the company towards that goal, it's really difficult. That's why we created an example of one of our workflows, that is the execution beast, that does exactly that, okay? It allows you to define business goals and connect them to daily tasks, okay? Because I think that moving from a strategy to implementation is one of the most difficult things in a business, okay? Because you need to move from something that is abstract to something that is so concrete and specific that you lose track of the big thing that you are pursuing, okay? And I think that the moment that that's combined, and the business knowledge management and business project management system, it's able to do that without any friction at all, is the moment that everyone is aligned, and those weekly meetings that we do to define those weekly goals become much easier to digest and to put it into practice, because that's what we need at the end. We need, no matter that it's AI or whatever, at the end we want the outcome, okay? The thing is how we get to the outcome, and how do we get to that destination the easiest way possible, okay? And that's what we are trying to deliver by being much more productive and efficient at a personal level, and the company will benefit out of it.
Yeah, 100%. And here's a follow-up question from Curtis that we can address before we close this session today. Unfortunately, I cannot zoom in closer. Hopefully you can still see it. What I'm concerned about is guardrails, not the tools. In my project, I have the correct doctrine, brand context for each client, our SOPs, etc. It sounds like you recommend if they want to use AI, they create their own PKA, and then I give them files to add, but then we have the issue of version control for those files. Tom, you mentioned single source of truth. That's what I need to figure out, is where the source of truth lives for our firm. Maybe there are a few folders that get started and synced across the team with GitHub. It's a lot less complex than it seems. I will show you very quickly, for example, with the AI. Well, in fact, let's do it even simpler as an example, where we can consider now our members being the team members you want to share the context with, without them to change something. And that's where we let our members who are inner circle members, they get access to our ICOR MCP. So this means they have read access to the context that they need to improve their ICOR productivity. So now they build a PKA, they have insights about how they work and all the context locally, and now they can connect to ICOR to get additional context on what is the growth assignment state, what is the tools that I'm using, and ask AI about this. This is just one example that I wanted to bring up because it directly correlates to what you showed there. Because when I open up Larry, now I closed him, I think. But it doesn't matter. You saw it before the Larry's team. Is it still there? No, I closed him. No, there he is. here. All right. So here, not everything is in a local folder. To give them full context, I obviously connected the team via API or MCPs to our databases that give additional context. And this is where you do the same in your business, where you say, okay, there is read access for certain things that you give them, or that there is a file that they can access but only read only. It could be a Word document on SharePoint. It can be a Google Doc that they can access but not edit. And therefore they have the full context when it comes to these. So this way you could have local SOPs that you keep updating where they can extract the information and know how to work on these things and not able to create anything. And then you can go obviously further if you want to really automate things, and they can move things into the BKM area as a result. This is where you can have a team inbox where AI have access to, and they can give the input there. This is many things where we increase complexity, but this is already a level that when we look at the world and we see 95% of businesses fail with AI implementation, we talk here about things that we start here with what is a node. And so many times people don't know, and they don't know where to find information, and they keep scattering information across different tools. And all these basic rules and guardrails, they're independent of AI, they are simple business rules, and they might seem simple, but no matter the business size or corporate, this is always lacking. That's why ICOR is here and what we keep educating in these businesses. This will improve the productivity, that you don't ask the questions anymore where, okay, how can I add now another automation layer on top? Because you might want to have control manually of these things. This is why educating the people how they can optimize their own work, how to make sure your team knows what they need to work on this week, and don't overwhelm them with things that you don't track yourself, and many things that we teach in ICOR. This is much more crucial than any question about, okay, how can I automate this? And I'm so strict here and say this so direct because we talk for this for, longer than 4 years. Since 2018, I launched the paperless movement. When it came to automation, how many people join and say, I want to automate my processes? And then we ask, okay, what's your process? And they are not aware what they are working the whole day. That's usually the wall they hit when they hire a personal assistant. And then you suddenly need to explain to a person what you're doing and what you want to delegate. And there's a lot more friction afterwards than actually removing work. And getting these foundations right, getting everything into order, this will unlock the layer of automation and the layer of AI like a pro. It's not something that we restrict for you in this journey. It is just something that's crucial to have upfront and understanding. And there's so much potential to save time and get clarity and get organized as an individual and as a team, that AI is really just something on top. And again, 95% of businesses failed with AI, and this is the exact reason they didn't have this in place. I'm just saying this bluntly. Obviously, I cannot prove it, but I'm pretty sure this is the case from all the thousands of businesses that we coached over the past years. Yeah. That's it.
Correct.
Everybody.
And I think that
okay.
Just to mention, people tend to underestimate this solid foundational core, thinking that is just, waste of time. And the thing is that the moment that you need to face the explanation to any LLM, any skill, something in a deterministic way, because you cannot hesitate at that moment. You need to be as straightforward as possible if you want to really deliver an input, a process, okay, a definition of a process that the LLM can perfectly tackle, okay? Because if not, those are the guardrails that we were talking about. It's a methodology that creates that framework that allows you to create limitations, okay? So that the definition of the things become crucial, okay? Because when you are able to define with one word, and by the way, this is one of my highest, and it's the next article that I will write. It's about how powerful it is AI to define a concept based on a description so that I can reference that concept at any moment. I mean, if we all agree in the definition of what is a node, okay, and we deliver that definition, that exact definition, okay, 3 specific lines, okay, of what a node is to an LLM, I can guarantee you that the moment that you refer to a node, the LLM will perfectly know what this is all about, okay? So imagine the moment that you start defining all the different concepts, because that's what we did in the last years of our life. Here, my dear Tom and myself, okay? Detecting those main and essential and crucial concepts for any professional, talking about productivity, okay? And give a specific definition that has no doubt, okay? No doubt. I can perfectly define a goal, a project. You know, how many people cannot differentiate between a goal and a project? Because this is a reply that should be replied within seconds, okay? If I ask
well,
you,
and not only by the team leader, but also by the
and,
team members, right?
And that's the thing. And that's what a methodology allows, talking about AI. You can perfectly create concepts that the LLM will understand because they have a specific definition. They are perfectly, you know, differentiate one to the others. And then the second layer that we add, that is the workflows, the processes, how we put into action those concepts. And again, you define, that's why Tom has shown the SOP folder, okay? Those are the workflows that we define on ICOR. So if you combine static concepts with bringing them to life, thanks to a specific, really specific, when we talk about 6 workflows for note-taking, is because we know that a professional doesn't need any additional workflow to make their work, okay? To go to a meeting and draw conclusions, to jot down any thought that came to mind, whatever, okay? Imagine that to business management, to task management, to everything, okay? That's why we have 5 courses, well, 6, and all those lessons that we started the podcast with, because it's impossible, okay? No matter that we try to summarize, to synthesize, man, this is complex, okay? The thing is that we made it digestible, okay? Following guidance, steps, and a sequential order of the things. But imagine giving all that to an AI agent, okay? Instead of just you improvising, okay? All those things. That's the difference between AI working versus AI not working at all, okay? Because what we cannot demand to any LLM is to bring amazing outcomes when the input and the definition of that backbone is not defined at all, okay? Because that's
still
unfair.
Our unfair advantage as a human. AI cannot do innovative things yet. That's where you have to put at some point some brain power into it to make it. Otherwise, you don't need to complain that you get replaced by an AI agent. So this is one thing. And what you just addressed here is I see so many people who just copy the transcript from my video, how to set up the AI agent, give it to Claude, build this for me, and it's not working according to my video, what I explained there. I said it in this podcast meeting example, right? You meet, you have confusion in the beginning and you have conclusion in the end. And in the mid, you have conversations back and forth. Oh yeah, I agree. No, I disagree. Okay, let's conclude something else. All this back and forth is noise that confuses AI. And in my videos, I also show you the things, the roads that you shouldn't go down, but I show you these roads, right? So how should AI now properly differentiate between the things? You just expect it concludes the same things as a human does. No, because just feeding an empty AI this video lacks the context of you. It doesn't know your specific use case. That's why we're teaching this. You need to learn how to set this up yourself. Same as this for the tools. People join us asking, what tools should I use? We give you the examples what we are using, but in the end, it's so important to not use the tools that others are using just for the sake of it, to not use the shiny object, to not download a template and then complain afterwards it's not working for you, because this is lazy. Sorry to say that. It's just lazy looking for shortcuts where you in long term or even midterm, you waste so much more time and energy. Start and stop these things, and also money, because you probably invest a lot more into these different shiny objects too. And then you go out there frustrated and saying, well, I have so many subscriptions running and I have no clue. This is because you need to pause and think about the things holistically, understand what's going on around you. And that's what ICOR gives you the definition for. And then you realize what you can optimize in your life. We are not students here. We are not children who start from scratch. We are all our community members are successful business professionals. And we are optimizing our work and not telling you, now you stop everything, you kill all the tools, and you just switch to everything here. Never change a running system, even if it is not perfectly set up. And here is something I want to, here's one last comment on YouTube.
I would like to add one thing before moving on, because we said that it was a 30-minute podcast and we are...
Well, obviously, we already extended it to 60 minutes.
So and now we don't care about the time length. But it seems that this is something related to AI, but this is exactly the same that we have always lived. How many people thought that just by reading a book about, I don't know, Steve Jobs, he will become the next Steve Jobs? Yeah. This is exactly the same. I have nothing to do with Steve Jobs. You know, I live in a different country. I have a different culture. I have a different knowledge. I have a different profile. I approach things with a different perspective. It's impossible. But if I am able to extract patterns out of things that work for Steve Jobs, and I'm able to apply those patterns to my specific use case, it's how, because that's the thing, I have learned a lot by reading biographies of busy professionals and successful entrepreneurs, okay? Thanks to identifying the patterns and applying them to myself, okay? Creating the adaptations that I need to make that work at my level, my resources, at, well, my reality, my context, okay? And this is something that it's the approach that we made with ICOR, because we could have bet on just going with a specific tool, for instance, and design a system because, well, between Tom and me, we can perfectly set up any tool, okay, based on ICOR and try to sell that. But that's not the purpose, because we know that that doesn't work, because the thing is that we need to create something that anyone can understand and then adapt to themselves, no matter just the tool itself, but how they think, what is their reality, how they work, what's their industry, what are the standards that they need to follow, what are the... There's nothing related between a pharma industry and an automotive industry, or a company of 1,000 people versus one entrepreneur. So, but the thing is that ICOR can be applied to any of them, because we have identified the patterns that we consider that they need to be interiorized by professionals so that they can be free, okay? Be free to do whatever they want, to use the tool they want, how they want it, set it up how they want it. And that's why in AI, the exact same principle is the one that happens, okay? And that's why you cannot take a transcript of any of our videos, use it as a prompt, and expect that the results will be amazing, because we have done this so specifically designed. Even if we compare Tom's system versus my system, they have nothing to do, but they share the exact same patterns, okay? But the application of patterns is what creates the difference, talking about the outcome, but also the income, because it doesn't, the input is not the same how we interpret how income or the input should go into a productivity system, and has nothing to do how I need the outcome, and the output of a productivity system differs, okay? I need different outputs than Tom, because we are different people with different needs and with different perspective of life. And that's why we try to communicate, seeing it from different approaches and perspective, so that people get the point of how they should approach, but not only ICOR, but the whole productivity world, because this is quite difficult, okay? Thinking about concepts, workflow, it's abstract. To make that tangible, that's why we are doing these improvements in the platform, okay? Because it's not easy. It's not easy. People get lost. People don't understand. People interpret things in a specific way, okay? Because we all have biases.
And that's the
We
point
have
here
bias, and
again,
that's the
how
thing.
powerful ICOR is in this regards, because we acknowledge that there is a difference between the business layer and the personal layer. So the important thing is that in the business layer, everybody is on the same page and that they follow the same rules. And then you can vary in your personal layer the way that you are most effective, you know, your personal character and so on. And that's why also I always recommend to start with something simple. I remember, well, many examples come to mind where everybody wants to have everything at all. At once, right? The moment they set up, everything needs to take over from automation or AI. And we always say, pick something that is simple, that you do on a regular basis and that you hate doing. And I come back to these examples like selling something on eBay, where I have a lot of things that I was just too lazy to sell. Well, lazy. I had really more important things to do to sell this, where I always considered, well, the money that I get for selling it is not worth the time I invest that I would get in return working for the same time. Now I have AI. I made a photo of the thing that I want to sell. I gave it to my personal AI assistant. It set up everything inside eBay, but it's a local version in Germany, so it's not I'm not an eBay seller, right? I really talk about stupid things like this, which is private life. There we go. And there, I was shocked. It checked out other pricing and made comparisons. It set up a description, and all by just making an image, and I didn't need to think about it. I offloaded this and it worked perfectly. And that was one example out of many that I shared on the YouTube channel too, and that we share inside the community, obviously, where scanning documents. Just today, I scanned 100 paper invoices for my health insurance. I asked my personal assistant, now please add it to my database, differentiate the different PDFs, make calculations of all these things. Hours, days, I was sitting there doing this manually to figure out what I need to hand in and what I keep, and now I have AI. And then we come to the point where, yeah, you have to be aware of the 80%. There will be mistakes. You need to know what AI is doing. Does it make sense what the output is or not? And yeah, that's where simple is always important, and you can only start simple with these things this way. And here I want to add this last comment here. Well, actually, the second, there's one more that I want to quickly share, but this one is something that I see more and more for some reason, where people reach out and they say, yeah, they set this up, and they get banned from Claude. And if it is the reason that they use it or that they set it up the way I set these things up, and I have no idea what's happening. What I know is I used ClaudeBot/Moldbot/OpenClaw in the past. I used a subscription with it until I very quickly realized this is out of terms of conditions from Claude, which is now public and everybody knows about it, hopefully. If you're not, now you know you shouldn't use it. You use the API access, which is too expensive to make it worth. So the moment I realized this 2 months ago, I stopped. I just had this set up for 2 days, and then I stopped. I deleted everything, and I started building this myself based on the terms and conditions of Claude, because they promote you to automate things to a certain level within the terminal. You can build your own interface around it. You're not allowed to share accounts, right? So if this is something you did, you set up an account and more people are using it on different devices, that leads to getting banned. Or you're also not allowed to, well, even sell it, because that's something other platforms did. They bought all these subscriptions and let other people use it through their interfaces. And that's the issue behind this. But the way that we teach it here, well, we are not lawyers. We cannot give you guarantees. All I can share with you, for 6 months, I'm using Claude Code heavily every day, around the clock, I would even say. I never had an issue. It might happen tomorrow, right? This is something we don't know. It could be a hiccup in the system. The best way is to reach out and ask. But the setup that we do, we just have a local folder. We use Claude to build this. You best use it for yourself and not let it automate things let automations use it, and then you should be within the guardrails of their terms and conditions. And the last comment I want to share here, I watched your videos and setting up my own structure just as Tom is describing now. Would still like to see how you guys are set up. I think I missed a video. Which video can I see details? You're welcome to join my ICOR, because there you get access to the learning resources that we shared in the beginning. Obviously on the YouTube channel there are videos, but it is really about what you're looking for, right, to set this up. This being said, let's quickly share this before we close the session. We have here you can go to event recordings as an Inner Circle member, and there you have access to all the coaching sessions. Every Tuesday we go live, Paco and I, in Zoom, talking to people, not like this one where we have chat. No, we are talking to people. You can bring your questions, you can share your screen, and there's where we help you to set up your tools. And here are the recordings, and those are not just recordings. You have comprehensive summaries, well, a whole guide below, where you have the timestamps to jump into the video directly by just clicking. You have these insights here. You have an extra discussion section where you can join the discussion afterwards on the recording. And this is where we have also the new workshop. So the first one was in March. The next one will be this week on Wednesday. So we already have 130 people signed up, Paco. 130 people. Wow. Will hopefully all join the workshop. It will get busy.
Thanks so much.
And this is where we start to build these from scratch. Paco will be there too, as an exception, I would say for now. Who knows if things change, but he will be there too while I'm building this.
Maybe it's you who ran away in the next one.
Next time I will tell him he is not allowed to join anymore because I wasn't able to talk. No, he will be there because we always give both perspectives from different use cases, and that's what we saw in the past. Helps best to get the point. But here you see, this is the recording of the workshop that you get instant access as an Inner Circle when you sign up, which is again the whole guide below with timestamps that jumps into the 3-hour workshop to explain you, where I explain this inside the workshop. I think there's nothing. I never have seen this whenever I signed up to any communities where they share all the recordings and then you watch it or not. But here you click and you say, I want to see the 3 core agents that are always set up. And it will jump into the section of this video. And this is the place where I explain it. Again, you always have the insights. And also, as everything is interconnected in the platform, and I shared you the ICOR framework previously, we have a whole tool database, so therefore AI knows about tools, and whenever we talk about tools, here we go. There is the timestamps where we talk about specific tools. OpenClaw, boom. This is where it jumps into the section where I talk about OpenClaw, and on top you get all the resources. Man, this is really taking again a whole podcast recording just talking about the recording of workshops. Isn't this crazy? So here, workshop guide. Let me here, then the prompt templates, because people ask, so what prompts did you use and so on. Here you go, copy paste. These are the prompts that I shared during the workshop that you can copy in if you want. Also, I always recommend to just learn, consume, test for yourself in your own safe environment, and then apply it to your own system or expand on it. But if you want it, there you have it. A lot more troubleshooting guide, a cheat sheet is there. Well, you name it, as you know it, if you're already a member. Okay, everybody. Great session. Thanks so much for your engagement and all the questions that we got. We will keep an eye out for anything that we might miss to answer inside the community directly. So that's how we address it then in these Monday sessions too. But obviously, if you're an Inner Circle member, always join us on Tuesday and ask us directly. That's what we are here for. Everybody, we catch you up next week or tomorrow inside Inner Circle or on Wednesday in the workshop.
Thank you so much for being with us. See you.